This audiobook contains 12 chapters and a preface. You are now listening to the 11th chapter of Hagakure, the Book of the Samurai. Click in the top right-hand corner for the full audiobook. Chapter 11. In the notes on martial laws it is written that the phrase, win first, fight later, can be summed up in the two words, win beforehand. The resourcefulness of times of peace is the military preparation for times of war. With 500 allies one can defeat an enemy force of 10,000. When advancing on the enemy's castle, and then pulling back, do not retreat by the main road, but rather by the side roads. One should lay one's dead and wounded allies face down in the direction of the enemy. It is a matter of course that a warrior's attitude should be to be in the vanguard during an attack and in the rear during a retreat. In approaching for the attack he does not forget to wait for the right moment. In waiting for the right moment he never forgets the attack. A helmet is usually thought to be very heavy, but when one is attacking a castle or something similar, and arrows, bullets, large rocks, great pieces of wood and the like are pouring down, it will not seem the least bit so. Once when Master Yaju was before the shogun on some business, a number of bamboo swords fell from the ceiling. He quickly clasped his hands above his head and was not struck. Again, at a certain time when he was summoned, the shogun was waiting behind cover with a bamboo sword ready to strike him. Master Yaju called out in a loud voice, "This is for your own discipline. Don't look." As the shogun turned around, Master Yaju stepped up and took the sword out of his hand. A person who does not want to be struck by the enemy's arrows will have no divine protection. For a man who does not wish to be hit by the arrows of a common soldier, but rather by those of a warrior of fame, there will be the protection for which he has asked. Wind bells are things that are used during campaigns in order to know the direction of the wind. For night attacks, fire can be set windward, while the attack can be carried out from the opposite direction. Your allies should be mindful of this also. One should always hang wind bells in order to know the direction of the wind. Lord Aki declared that he would not have his descendants learn military tactics. He said, on the battlefield, once discretion starts it cannot be stopped. One will not break through to the enemy with discretion. Indiscretion is most important when in front of the tiger's den. Therefore, if one were informed of military tactics, he would have many doubts, and there will be no end to the matter. My descendants will not practice military tactics. According to Lord Nashige's words, there is something to which every young samurai should pay attention. During times of peace, when listening to stories of battle, one should never say, in facing such a situation, what would a person do? Such words are out of the question. How will a man who has doubts even in his own room achieve anything on the battlefield? There is a saying that goes, no matter what the circumstances might be, one should be of the mind to win. One should be holding the first spear to strike. Even though you have put your life on the line, there is nothing to be done when the situation doesn't go as planned. Takeda Shingen once said, if there was a man who could kill Lord Ieyasu, I would give him a handsome reward. Hearing this, a boy of 13 entered into the service of Lord Ieyasu, and one night when he saw that Ieyasu had retired, took a stab at his bedding. Lord Ieyasu was actually in the next room silently reading a sutra, but he quickly grabbed the boy. When the investigation was held, the boy related the facts honestly, and Lord Ieyasu said, you seem to be an excellent young man, so I employed you on friendly terms. Now, however, I am even more impressed by you. He then sent the lad back to Shingen. One night some samurai from Karatsu gathered together and were playing Go. Master Kitabatake was watching the game, and when he offered a suggestion, one man attacked him with a sword. After the people around them had stopped the man, Master Kitabatake pinched out the light of the candle and said, it was nothing more than my own indiscretion, and I apologize. The sword hit the Go case. I was not the least bit wounded. Then the candle was relighted, but when the man came to reconciliate and offer him a sake cup, Kitabate cut the man's head off with one blow. Presently he said, "My thigh having been cut through, it was difficult to offer any resistance, but by binding my leg with my coat and supporting myself with a goat board, I have done this thing." Having said this, he expired. There is nothing so painful as regret. We would all like to be without it. However, when we are very happy and become elated, or when we habitually jump into something thoughtlessly, later we are distraught, and it is for the most part because we did not think ahead and are now regretful. Certainly we should try not to become dejected, and when very happy should calm our minds. These are teachings of Yamamoto Tsunetomo. Single-mindedness is all-powerful. Tether even a roasted chicken. Continue to spur a running horse. A man who will criticize you openly carries no connivance. A man exists for a generation, but his name lasts to the end of time. Money is a thing that will be there when asked for. A good man is not so easily found. Walk with a real man 100 yards, and he'll tell you at least 7 lies. To ask when you already know is politeness. To ask when you don't know is the rule. Wrap your intentions in needles of pine. One should not open his mouth wide or yawn in front of another. Do this behind your fan or sleeve. A straw hat or helmet should be worn tilted toward the front. It is a principle of the art of war that one should simply lay down his life and strike. If one's opponent also does the same, it is an even match. Defeating one's opponent is then a matter of faith and destiny. One should not show his sleeping quarters to other people. The times of deep sleep and dawning are very important. One should be mindful of this. This is from a story by Nagahama Nasuke. When one departs for the front, he should carry rice in a bag. His underwear should be made from the skin of a badger. This way he will not have lice. In a long campaign, lice are troublesome. When meeting with the enemy, there is a way to determine his strength. If he has his head cast down, he will appear black and is strong. If he is looking upward, he will appear white and is weak. This is from a story by Natsume Taneri. If a warrior is not unattached to life and death, he will be of no use whatsoever. The saying that all abilities come from one mind sounds as though it has to do with sentient matters, but it is in fact a matter of being unattached to life and death. With such non-attachment one can accomplish any feat. Martial arts and the like are related to this insofar as they can lead to the way. To calm one's mind, one swallows his saliva. This is a secret matter. When one becomes angry, it is the same. Putting spittle on one's forehead is also good. In the Yoshida school of archery, swallowing one's spittle is the secret principle of the art. A certain general said, for soldiers other than officers, if they would test their armor, they should test only the front. Furthermore, while ornamentation on armor is unnecessary, one should be very careful about the appearance of his helmet. It is something that accompanies his head to the enemy's camp. Nakano Tsunetomo said, learning such things as military tactics is useless. If one does not strike out by simply closing his eyes and rushing into the enemy, even if it is only one step, he will be of no use. This was also the opinion of Iyanaga Sasuke. In Natsume Taneri's military stories it is written. Look at the soldiers of recent times. Even in long battles there are hardly 1 or 2 occasions when blood is washed with blood. One should not be negligent. Taneri was a Ronin from the Kamigata area. To have execution grounds in a place where travelers come and go is useless. The executions in Ito and the Kamigata area are meant to be an example for the whole country. But the executions in one province are only for an example in that province. If crimes are many, it is a province's shame. How would this look to other provinces? With the passing of time, the criminal will forget the reason for his crime. It is best to execute him on the spot. Matsudaira Izu no Kami said to Master Mizuno Kanmatsu, "You're such a useful person, it's a shame that you're so short." Kanmatsu replied, "That's true. Sometimes things in this world don't go the way we would like. Now if I were to cut off your head and attach it to the bottom of my feet, I would be taller. But that's something that couldn't be done. A certain person was passing by the town of Ye when suddenly his stomach began to hurt. He stopped at a house on a side street and asked to use the toilet. There was only a young woman there, but she took him to the back and showed him where it was. Just as he was taking off his hakama and going into the toilet, the woman's husband came home and accused them both of adultery. In the end, it became a public matter. Lord Nashige heard the case and said, even if this is not a matter of adultery, it is the same as adultery to take off one's hakama without hesitation in a place where there is an unaccompanied woman, and in the woman's case to allow someone to disrobe while her husband is absent from home. It is said that they were both condemned to death for this act. In assessing the enemy's castle there is a saying that goes, smoke and mist are like looking at a spring mountain. After the rain is like viewing a clear day. There is weakness and perfect clarity. Among the words spoken by great generals, there are some that were said offhandedly. One should not receive these words in the same manner, however. People who have an intelligent appearance will not be outstanding even if they do something good, and if they do something normal, people will think them lacking. But if a person who is thought of as having a gentle disposition does even a slightly good thing, he will be praised by people. On the 14th day of the 7th month in the 3rd year of Shotoku, there were some cooks in the midst of preparations for the Ben festival in the outer citadel of the castle. One of them, Harajurazumon, unsheathed his sword and cut off the head of Sagara Genzaman. Mawatari Rakuwomen, Ira Terabe, Kolakinbei and Kakihara Raiman all ran away in confusion. When Jirazaman sighted Kinbei and started chasing him, the latter fled to the foot soldiers' gathering area. There, the daimyo's palanquin attendant, Tanaka Takuwomen, stood against Jirazaman and took away his still-drawn sword. Ishinaru Sanaman chased Jirazaman, and when they came to the foot soldiers' area, assisted Takuwomen. The punishment was given on the 29th day of the 11th month in the same year. Jirazaman was bound with rope and beheaded. Rakuwomen, Terabe, Kinbei and Riemann were banished, and Sanaman was ordered to retire. Takuwomen was rewarded with 3 pieces of silver. It was later said that Takuwomen had been slow to act, for he had not bound the man at that time. Among Takeda Shinjin's retainers there were men of matchless courage, but when Katsai Ori was killed in the fight at Tenmakizan, they all fled. Tsuchiya Sozo, a warrior who had been in disfavor for many years, came out alone, however, and said, I wonder where all the men are who spoke so bravely every day. I shall return the master's favors to me. And he fell alone in battle. The essentials of speaking are in not speaking at all. If you think that you can finish something without speaking, finish it without saying a single word. If there is something that cannot be accomplished without speaking, one should speak with few words, in a way that will accord well with reason. To open one's mouth indiscriminately brings shame, and there are many times when people will turn their backs on such a person. A devotee of the Nambutsu recites the Buddha's name with every incoming and outgoing breath in order never to forget the Buddha. A retainer, too, should be just like this in thinking of his master. Not to forget one's master is the most fundamental thing for a retainer. Men who did well at the time of their death were men of real bravery. There are many examples of such. But people who talk in an accomplished fashion every day yet are agitated at the time of their death can be known not to have true bravery. In the secret principles of Yaju Tajima no Kami Munenori there is the saying, there are no military tactics for a man of great strength. As proof of this, there was once a certain vassal of the shogun who came to Master Yaju and asked to become a disciple. Master Yaju said, you seem to be a man who is very accomplished in some school of martial art. Let us make the master-disciple contract after I learn the name of the school. But the man replied, I have never practiced one of the martial arts. Master Yaju said, have you come to make sport of Tajima no Kami? Is my perception amiss in thinking that you are a teacher to the shogun? But the man swore to it, and Master Yaju then asked, "That being so, do you not have some deep conviction?" The man replied, "When I was a child, I once became suddenly aware that a warrior is a man who does not hold his life in regret. Since I have held that in my heart for many years, it has become a deep conviction, and today I never think about death. Other than that I have no special conviction." Master Yaju was deeply impressed and said, "My perceptions were not the least bit awry. The deepest principle of my military tactics is just that one thing. Until now, among all the many hundreds of disciples I have had, there is not one who is licensed in this deepest principle. It is not necessary for you to take up the wooden sword. I will initiate you right now." And it is said that he promptly banded him the certified scroll. This is a story of Muragawa Soden's. Meditation on inevitable death should be performed daily. Every day when one's body and mind are at peace, one should meditate upon being ripped apart by arrows, rifles, spears and swords, being carried away by surging waves, being thrown into the midst of a great fire, being struck by lightning, being shaken to death by a great earthquake, falling from 1,000-foot cliffs, dying of disease or committing seppuku at the death of one's master. And every day without fail one should consider himself as dead. There is a saying of the elders that goes, "Step from under the eaves, and you're a dead man. Leave the gate and the enemy is waiting." This is not a matter of being careful. It is to consider oneself as dead beforehand. People will become your enemies if you become eminent too quickly in life, and you will be ineffectual. Rising slowly in the world, people will be your allies and your happiness will be assured. In the long run, whether you are fast or slow, as long as you have people's understanding there will be no danger. It is said that fortune that is urged upon you from others is the most effective. The warriors of old cultivated mustaches, for as proof that a man had been slain in battle, his ears and nose would be cut off and brought to the enemy's camp. So that there would be no mistake as to whether the person was a man or a woman, the mustache was also cut off with the nose. At such a time the head was thrown away if it had no mustache, for it might be mistaken for that of a woman. Therefore, growing a mustache was one of the disciplines of a samurai, so that his head would not be thrown away upon his death. Tsunetomo said, "If one washes his face with water every morning, if he is slain his complexion will not change." The word person of the north comes from a tradition of the correct way of upbringing. A couple will put their pillows in the west, and the man, lying on the south side, will face the north, while the woman, lying on the north side, will face the south. In bringing up a boy, one should first encourage a sense of valor. From the time he is young the child should liken his parents to the master, and learn everyday politeness and etiquette, the serving of other people, the ways of speech, forbearance and even the correct way of walking down the street. The elders were taught in the same fashion. When he does not put effort into things, he should be scolded and made to go the entire day without eating. This is also one of the disciplines of a retainer. As for a girl, it is most important to teach her chastity from the time she is a child. She should not be in the company of a man at a distance of less than 6 feet, nor should she meet them eye to eye, nor should she receive things from them directly from hand to hand. Neither should she go sightseeing or take trips to temples. A woman who has been brought up strictly and has endured suffering at her own born will suffer no ennui after she is married. In dealing with younger children one should use rewards and punishments. If one is lax in being sure that they do as they are told, young children will become self-interested and will later be involved in wrongdoings. It is something about which one should be very careful.